my computer. Back to you, Doug.
All right, here we go. All right, so what is the bug? The bug is this one. So, okay, so what happened? We hit an issue where invites were not being accepted, email invites. And just give a little background, when a user is invited by email, meaning they do not have an account on GitLab yet, they will get a link in the email. Now, presumably click on that link, and then when their user account is accepted, we have a process that automatically happens to accept those invites, which means it will take that member record and associate the user to it and remove the invite token from the member record. However, we found that through a bunch of troubleshooting and looking at things with Ian and myself and a few other engineers, that Ian found out that case sensitivity is observed on invite email values in the member records. I think I'm saying that right, meaning like it is a totally different record if it is uppercase versus lowercase, and that's allowed. And the problem with that is that when we go to accept the invites, we do not observe case sensitive. I'm not even sure if I'm saying that right. We don't even consider that the case could be different. So we, when the user is created, and the other problem with that, when the user is created, it is downcased, no matter if the user puts uppercase or not. So then we don't find the matching member record to bind it to if it's uppercase. So this one was challenging to find because I think for us as engineers, we like, this is such a basic issue that it feels like it should already be solved. And like
how
product...
did this not crop up earlier? Like
exactly, right?
Like, oh,
Exactly.
I'm like, my phone's constantly capitalizing my first letter on my email. And I'm like, no.
Yeah. And it's like a basic Rails thing too. Like if you've ever been in Rails and like doing this, you always think like uppercase, downcase, that's something that's like blatant usually you have to deal with, right? And it's like, in a product as mature as GitLab, I wouldn't think I'd be tripping up on it at this point.
Yeah.
However, so that's what made it hard to find. So here's the code where we accept the pending invitations on the user sign up, right? And so what also tripped us up was this is deep into devise and identity verification, and the identity verification area has been changing rapidly lately. So that was the first thing we looked at. So we looked at that really, really hard, a lot. But I was like, maybe it could be this. But I'm like, nah, I looked at that one and I'm like, there's no way it could be this. Right? It just accepts the pending invitations, right? And I didn't even think. And then Ian found that, the verified emails, which come from the user account, right? It can be your email, your private commit email, or the associated emails relation to look against, right? And those are all downcased because they're saved downcased in the database when they're stored. The problem is invite emails aren't. So how do we solve this, right? So here's...
Wait, I have a quick question,
Yeah.
just because this is not exactly related to this bug, but I'm curious. Membership invites are only a thing in GitLab when the user has never signed up for GitLab before, right? Like normally when you invite a user to GitLab, if they already have a user account, like if I invite Terry to my new group, she's automatically added. She doesn't have to accept that. So this is like a brand new user scenario.
Yeah, and we have certain checks in place at different layers of the app to ensure that if you try to put in an email that's already bound to a user account, we make it, we don't make it an invite by email. We convert that in the background.
Oh, got it.
Either in the UI...
So this is like,
yeah.
Got it. So this is like the brand new user. It's like I'm getting an invitation email from GitLab. I've never signed into GitLab before. Okay.
Yep. So on the registrations controller and a few other places like the sessions controller where these things could hit edge cases, we run this operation. We accept the pending invites if there's any. The problem is in our current bug, there isn't any found. So imagine that, for instance, this is .com. In the members table as invite email, right? And then in users as email, it is example at example.com. And then at this point, it's not found. Now you could say like, well, the user could put in, what if they put in uppercase? Because we do hard code it in the front end if we have certain on the form now to be, you know, what the user put in for the invite, but we downcase it on save. And so I've documented the behavior so far that's true. And this is on the members model where I tried this out. You know, creating the duplication. This is valid. So as you can see, uppercase, these are considered two different records at this point. On the user record, I also verified that this is also true. I haven't found the code where this is happening yet. You know, the user's model is huge. It's probably buried in a module somewhere or something like that. I did find on email, which is the association members, how it's doing it. And it's doing it right here. Not my preferred, not, I don't know if I love this or not, you know, versus like, you know, before validation or before save or some other way to do it, right? So I'm unsure about that. So my thing is like, there's two things here. Well, three things, right? Like, okay, one, I know I need to probably fix the query that's happening right here to be case insensitive. I think I need to do that at least short term, maybe. The other thing is like, well, we could backfill and fix the issue by just downcasing all the invites that match, but then I don't think we can do that because how do you know who wins? And you're going to have like invalid records possibly where duplicates already exist. So I don't think I can do that. And I don't even think I can do that long term because I don't think it's something we can solve without just, you know, picking a winner or something like that for unaccepted invites. And they could be 2 years old, 3 years old. You know, you could say, well, maybe we don't care, but I just don't think it's a decision I can make.
Right,
one
attribute code
question.
is like almost 10 years old.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, let's see what I just like to look when I'm like, that's a different way to do it. I wonder if that it just hasn't been needed to be touched in that long.
One question I had is in terms of email server, is it true that like all email services would treat like are case insensitive for email? Or is it possible that like Yahoo thinks of example in all caps versus example not all caps as different emails? I hope not, but just confirming that.
Yeah, I don't
I feel like that would be
know.
like an SMTP protocol like thing. I
Yeah.
feel like the inside me, it's like, no, it doesn't matter. I still use my Yahoo account.
Me too.
I don't think it matters, but we can look that up. Yeah, I think that would be, I feel like that would be part of like the SMTP protocol. I don't know.
Yeah,
I've had emails just email of the past where like technically they should all accept like domains, like certain domains, but like don't because they just chose not to or something.
yeah. I think that's yeah, but you know, yeah. So I feel like users and the emails model or tables or whatever give us a path forward here as to a standard that we've established on how to feel about these things for the case sensitivity. So I feel like the answer is downcase. However, I do not think we can cure what's in the database currently. So I feel like what I want to do, depending on how much breaks in the app when I do this, I want to make members downcase on save too, on the assignment or creation to cure everybody in the future. Now, what could that mean? That could mean like if somehow a member invite is laying around somewhere where it has a duplicate of like, lowercase and uppercase, right, for the same project or the same group, then it can make that record invalid. But the scenario of that but which one would be invalid? I don't know, both at that point.
Well, wait, but Doug, you said you want to just downcase it on save, so that's you're not adding a validation in that case. You might want to
Right.
also do that going forward, but if you just downcase it, then it would that would just affect any new records, right? And you couldn't start. If
You're
somebody
right.
tried to invite somebody twice, it would be a problem. Yeah.
If they were to somehow, or somehow edit an existing record that was uppercase, that would make it invalid on save. But there is no way for someone to do that except through maybe the API. And that's a pretty severe edge case, I would think, of that happening, of editing an actual invite that had a duplicate of the uppercase versus lowercase.
Yeah. Well, and also like the consequences of that, they got the error. They'd be like, "Oh, this invite doesn't work."
Right. And
it's like not that big of a deal.
yeah, right. I mean, and ideally it should be in their view of like the members page anyways, unless it's the API of them doing it. They should likely see the other one there already too, that's matching it. So I
Well,
feel
not to derail us, but
yeah.
like today I learned I am wrong, and that the SMTP protocol, it specifies that what do they call it? The local part of a mailbox must be treated as case sensitive. But I know for a fact that Google doesn't do that.
Yeah.
Huh.
So, which is
But some
wild.
do.
I'll link that just because it's interesting. I don't think that should change how we fix things because I feel like we're already downcasing things.
Yeah.
And we should try to be consistent in that. And I really don't think, like, I can't go and get Terry Chu at Gmail with a capital T because the other one's not there. But maybe I could on Outlook or
That's
something.
interesting. So
Yeah.
like the RFC or whatever says one thing, but a lot of the clients, it seems, providers say, we don't care, we're not allowing it.
Yeah, it says a few SMTP servers in violation of the specification. I don't know. It's just like very confusing. And there are other articles where people are like, Gmail does this thing it's not supposed to. How do you get around it?
Interesting. Wait, by the way, just small anecdote of feel old moment. I had a dinner this week with an adult person who was like, I'm so lucky my parents got my Gmail address when I was born. So I have my name. And I was like, oh my God.
That's actually what I told someone when you're about to get married and you're changing your name, because not everyone does that. And like I have a Gmail account for one of my kids and I haven't gotten the other one yet, but I need to.
That's wild.
But that makes me feel okay. That's still a baby. This is an adult person where Gmail existed.
Well, they'll be like in like
when they were
25
born.
years, they can be like, I'm glad
Yeah.
I got one.
Yeah, that'll be so cool.
I ran into that too, where Gmail actually forces you down that path if you want to use their parental limitations for YouTube. Because to create a family type of a concept, you have to have like your own account for the child and they need an email. So it's
yeah, that's why I was
family
doing
planning.
it, so I could control. I mean, like they can't actually go on anything, but I'm like, and then I also wanted to set them up for airline accounts for points. I don't know.
These kids.
When you're not a lap baby, I want those points. So I did put a link to the SMTP RFC that I was looking at. I found it in a few different places, and I spelled sensitivity wrong, but.
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very cool.
All
right. So
okay.
I feel like backfilling long term trying to fix everything to be compliant long term is not for existing records is not doable. Would we agree on that? Just due to the
I also like the size of that table is what, like how long would that backfill be? How many records are in the state? I don't even know, like, if it's worthwhile going down that route, but kind of like fixing the future invites. And then I guess my question is like, what happens if we fix it and then someone with 2 in there, like what happens?
What happens? So
Oh, 'cause
on invite
they are
acceptance,
accept.
Yeah.
Oh, go, sorry, go.
yeah, on invite acceptance, the email is wiped out of that member record anyways.
Yeah.
So no, it's not. Sorry. These things are. This thing is blanked out. I don't think it'll
But
affect anything because for the ones that are accepted should be matching the user's email, which is downcased as we know now anyways.
But then with this, the one, so say you start to make the membership search case insensitive, right? So if I was invited with all low caps, upper caps and the low caps, you would accept just one of those, and you can't add me twice, right? I can't have 2 membership records. You just accept one. Do you mark the second one as complete as well? Or like what happens to that record?
Well, if we
Delete
solve
it?
it going forward by lowercasing it, I guess I don't care because all the new ones would be, and I would probably don't care about the past and just consider
And
them.
what if they have different access levels? What if one invites me as an admin and one invites me as a guest?
Both were authorized invites to make, I would say, and one was correct and one is just not correct. And we can't service it. Is that okay?
But how do we, so we don't accept the one that, like, what if neither of them matches? What if neither of them's all lowercase? What if one's title
Okay,
case
you're
and one's
saying
all
like
caps?
that we could get a
How do we
duplicate
choose?
here and we need to deduplicate somehow and only accept one of them.
I think so. I would assume the membership records need to be unique for
Yeah,
the scope of a user. Yeah.
yeah, user and source. Okay, so then we need to not only downcase this, we need to take into account past records before this change, let's say, that we're going to make and pick a winner. And maybe the answer is to just not even consider anyone that has an uppercase in this query.
Oh, so then, but then any existing invites would be invalid.
Any existing invites are technically invalid because they can never be accepted if they're uppercase anyways.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be less edge casey and more mainstreamy? Like I could imagine a bunch of people being like, why are none of my invites being accepted?
Yet nobody has this is the first, well, I'm sure there's an issue somewhere where someone's complained about this, but it's not been serviced if there is one, and it's been a long time. So maybe it's an edge case then, if someone hasn't like solved this yet. Maybe you can make an assumption there. I don't know. Or do you think there's like, I don't know how to intelligently pick a winner besides to say, just consider the one that was uppercase because it never would have worked anyways to be accepted, to ignore it.
You could do like the most recently created one, maybe. Like,
Yeah, I feel like that one
another.
might be, if you sent multiple invites, I'm not sure if it would let you send multiple invites. Or maybe for like, it didn't work, I sent it again, tried again. The most recent would be. I feel like as a user that can't be faulted because it's like that was the last request you made. And so just default to that.
Okay, so if member and cases, if invite and cases are different, pick the latest created member. This will solve the pre-fixing this bug. Invites, not solve, cover. Okay, so we could do that. And then is there any other consideration to be made here besides that for which one to accept? that we can think of.
And well, I don't think the other one, but then just to clarify then what the behavior would be. So we accept the latest one, then the previous two will be shown as accepted, but they actually won't be accepted.
I
Or
don't
like
think
what?
we
Those
could-
will still show. Sorry.
Okay, so then the ones that we do not accept, in that case, what to do?
Yeah, how are these? I'm sorry if I missed it. That's like my brain is just not working today. But is this like something shown in the UI to like an administrator or a group admin that shows like your pending invites?
It is shown. Yeah, okay. Let me just try.
Oh, right.
Yeah, but
It was
Bite-
so good for a
bite
while.
and-
Like it was just so good for a while.
bite and then switching like branches and then like, waiting for the timeout to happen, and like 2 or 3 requests later, my GDK will load. That being said, we've done a really good job with GDK. Okay, so let's try to find one maybe, or create one to see what it looks like. Okay. What did I do? What happened? Did it just reload on me or something? We clicked the wrong thing. There we go. Okay, so let's invite and I'm just going to invite these separately just to see it show up. Okay, all right, invited tab now. Let's invite Bob. Oh, come on.
Great. Screaming Bob.
Okay.
They're both there.
Oh,
Okay.
that's so wild. Okay.
Bug confirmed. Again.
And
Yeah,
so when Bob goes to sign up, the bottom one is the one that will be found.
Well, after we talked about it, we think
No,
it's
yeah, I mean like the current state is if
okay. Yeah,
like
the
the
state.
current state is the second one would be found. And
Let's
the
put it,
first one.
I more want to put it this way. This one will never be found.
Yes, okay. So it doesn't matter what if you have multiples, that top one is never going to be found.
Yeah, only.
Okay.
Yeah. So then we're saying that in our case, our fix will be twofold. For ones that existed, we'll accept this one instead. Let's just make it your case, Jesse, valid here. Oh, we wanted higher. There you go. That higher one will be found. And then going forward, we want to make this happen. And so what did I do? There we go. I kind of put in, I don't like this, and I want to discuss how we do this, but kind of put that in. And I'm wondering if this will work or if I'll hit 500 different things here. So let's try this. Quit spinning
Title case.
Oh, why?
because it's reloading the okay, so now Bob at exam.
Bob the serial killer.
Yeah, exactly. If this works. Now this I
So
expect
that should throw an error, right?
I hope so.
Okay.
Because there's my tests showed that it's a validation error.
Ah,
Okay.
nice.
Yay.
So kind of an issue. These aren't matching. I've done a lot of work in this modal. We probably just need to carry that down case concept through because it's being bounced back probably is like trying to find the exact string Bob at example.com in lowercase to complain about, and it doesn't find a match. So some work would need to be done there to match those up. So it actually shows, it's supposed to show Bob at example.com here with the colon, right? And
Oh, I see
then
it.
show
Okay.
this as red. That's what's supposed to happen. Type of thing. So the problem is,
But at least that like prevents it from happening, which is
yeah.
what
So
we're So that will
yeah,
fix all the forward stuff. I mean, yes, there's some additional work to be done to that modal to
yeah.
give better feedback, but I think that that's a really, I mean, whether the right attribute is how you do it or some other way is fine. But I feel like that is that's a good way to fix everything going forward. We will never have more than one record going forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So then the question is, if we want to like say, yes, we want to do that, we're going to make this down case on save, on creation or save or assignment or whatever we want to call it. What's the best way to do it? And that's why I say I'm not in love with the way email does it, which is what I stole this from.
And why? I don't like that.
It seems a little magical to me and unintentional, meaning like, what am I trying to solve and when does it get solved? Is like a question to me here. Like it's like, okay, is it going to catch everything? Or when is it going to fire? You know, is it going to fire like on direct database insertions? No. And that's like one of the holes I see is direct database insertions. But a lot of things in Rails, we skip direct database insertions. So is that really an issue? You know, I don't, probably not. I mean, another way in which I usually see this solved, right, is things like this solved is you probably do it before validation because you want to make sure what you're validating is what you're putting in. So I wouldn't do it on before save because that's after validations and it could be invalid if you change it on before save if it's after that callback chain. So I might be enticed to use a before validation, just strip, do a invite mail dot downcase dot strip. Now the strip is on there. That's an extra little flavor to remove the spaces, you know, so that's a little out of scope of this change, I would think. But I might be wanting to do that too, I guess, if I don't break anything. But I'm not sure.
Why is that why is the before validation less magical than overriding the writer like you have here?
I don't know if it's less magical, but it's where I would expect to find it if it did happen, perhaps, in the Rails way. Now, that being said, callbacks are their own type of evil magic. So depending on how complex or how you use them, before validation is like I feel like is a tool that's left best is best used if it's not if it's left in the shed and not used at times.
Yeah.
However, before validation, when I've seen it used, is oftentimes a lot of times used for downcase and stripping. I've seen in my experience, and that feels like it's right, but I still want to see if there's like a superior way.
Yeah. And invites can happen via the API, right? So it's not just a UI interaction. We have to consider the API as well.
So, but everything goes through. No, because I've spent a lot of time in here. Everything goes through the create service, and maybe that's the place to do it. And I'm very certain they all go through here because I have been in here a lot, and probably, yeah.
So one thing I don't like about the writer thing, the writer approach, I feel like the validation and the writer are like kind of equally evil in my view, but the writer is hard to test. So if you want to write a test, it's like as soon as you write that attribute, it's
always going to happen.
You can't test it. Yeah, exactly. So you're like, well, we'll just like assume this is here. Well, you can write a test that I guess asserts that it's always, you know, downcased, but it's difficult to like raise an error or something with that. So I like the idea of putting it in this creator class because that makes it very explicit that this is happening when a membership record is created, and it's much easier to test. and it's not adding in yet another callback, because I don't, it scares me that we are on callbacks on line 306 of that email thing. So does that mean we have 305 validations or
Yeah.
callbacks?
Oh, there's a lot of scopes.
Okay, I know a lot of scopes. Okay. But like we can assume, especially because devise is in the mix here, that there are like layers of,
Yeah.
callbacks happening and stuff. Ugh.
Yeah, and you
Yeah.
can see there's a something being interwoven in here already, and it feels like it's not as much of a complex, tangled mess as the user area is, but it's close. And I feel like maybe, why did RubyMine remove the ability to go to source in the latest release?
Oof.
Okay, here's where I might put it. Put the code basically, if I were to do it, and this is what's getting invoked on the creation service. Now I'm very 99.9% certain there would be no issue with putting it here, and this is the path that everything takes, even the add member creation process during tests and things like that go through here. But putting it on the model layer kind of gets it a little closer to the database and gives you a little bit more assurance. And so there's that too.
I would still like it. I would like a world where we have no callbacks, so I would still like to put it here.
I've seen your comments on the other callbacks.
Exactly. I'm strong
Bias.
emotions on this topic. But
You've
I
been
mean,
wounded. You've been wounded. I hear you.
yeah.
Okay. Terry, any contrarian thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I'm coming around on the callbacks. My team uses them heavily for indexing operations, but we are working on refactoring that. So, I mean, I don't know. I think it will be fine here. I mean, I know there's like this push to like separate the monolith and all of that and like have things in these like service classes. And I feel like if we're making a push to like make change, then we need to like eat our own candy or whatever. Like we need to like follow our own wishes. So maybe this is like a good first step to kind of put it in another spot and start the pattern if it doesn't already exist.
There's
Yeah,
another case here too that's using this service insulates us from, right? If we put it at the model layer, like the email is doing, like the email is doing not in a before validation, then we're hitting every case of assignment, including updates. This creator class, of course, that we could do the same thing with before validation, just do on create, of course.
yeah, because I feel like right now, if there are two records and we do that equals thing, that might create an invalid, like what you just said just made me realize, like if we made a change that was like every time this thing gets updated, I almost feel like we need to make this change happen only, like you said, on create to fix, because this almost feels
Right.
like you could have two MRs, like an MR to fix like behavior going forward, get that done, and then like figure out what happens to the existing records that are now like before May, let's be optimistic, May 8th or whatever, that you get this done is like merged. So like
Yeah.
every record that's before this is pushed out, like how do we handle that?
Yeah, because if we did on like the way the email is doing it, just changing this role would make it an invalid record,
Yeah.
for instance. And
Yeah, what you said just like it made me think of that.
Yeah, we don't want to do that. So we know we don't want to do that, right? A problem with this is existing record updates like role access level changes
Or like
would
expiration
be
date or something.
invalid,
Yeah.
or expiration date.
Mhm.
And that would be surprising and not really good.
Yeah,
Not
I feel like
cool,
that would
not
break
cool.
changes for anyone that wants to make a role, like any role change wouldn't work anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
yeah. And I think you can solve that with a callback by doing it only before create, but like this is why
Yeah.
callbacks I feel like are evil, because it's like then you go to test and you're like, how do I fire this call? Which order are these run in? Is that before validation? And then it's just like,
Yeah.
ugh.
I do want to discuss that more because I feel a strong pull. I know what you're saying about callbacks, and in general, ones that do not mutate data and do other things, mutate data directly on the column in a simple way, I feel are problematic. Plus, their blast areas everywhere, getting hit on every path. And however, I really feel like a before validation would be okay here on create. Okay, just in general, but okay, but maybe even more discoverable. Um, like, okay, so for instance, I'm trying to find out where the user downcases it. I have no clue. I look through the code. I know it's happening because I put this in here to prove it out, and it is invalid. I don't know where it's happening though. I'm looking for the word downcase, I don't, any email is a check on I don't know where this is being called. Well, verified email, maybe it's doing it here, but it's not mutating it, right? Um, maybe this is being called but then it's like obviously being saved downcase, but where is that mutation happening? And maybe it's in the service layer. Maybe they said to do it there, maybe that's the answer. Um, I don't know. So like, I'm just saying that not prove, but to illustrate why I like a before validation in this case, because it's maybe possibly because the way everybody uses Rails, that more discoverable. However, I'm open to not doing it there for sure.
Well, do you want to try both? I mean, we have 20 minutes. We could probably do both and see. Like, I feel pretty certain that putting in the service layer, testing will be easier. That doesn't mean that that's a better place to put it, but that's one assumption I have that might be disproven by actually doing
Right.
it.
Okay, let's try this. I'll put it here first. I feel like I want to do it before invite token, and I feel like I only want to do it if the member is an invite. And they could either do that one of two ways. I could probably just do this. Because not all records will have an invite email filled out.
Oh, how would you invite somebody without an email?
Well, if the user's already registered with GitLab, it'll bind to the user directly.
Got it. Okay.
And that's why this stuff exists here. Why does this say invite accepted at? Like, why? How could it be invite accepted if it was on create and this was already present? Whatever. Okay. Let's see. Let's call it what? Down case invite email. Okay. Let's do this. Well, I'll leave that there just for an example and comment it out. And I probably want to I don't know, is it a thing to bang it? No, not for before validation, I would think. So let's do invite email dot down case bang. That will make it happen right now, right? I think.
Do you have to write email, say like invite email equals invite email that down case? Because it's not saved already. So I think bang would cause a save.
Would it, or would it just modify that?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Let me do it.
And now I'm mad because I can't see where this thing is downcased either.
It It's happening. My next thing is I am going to investigate that before we come up because maybe the user record will give me a guide, like say, oh, that's a standard. I'll do it like that, better too. But my guess is it might be in a module as a before validation, or it has to be that or a service, or maybe there's
Why wouldn't it be in the email like the build user for like that's the perfect spot for it. That's fine. We don't have to go down. We're gonna have to go digging. I might just poke around while we're talking and see, because now I'm like, ugh,
yeah.
frustrating.
The number
We
one
don't
thing I
want,
do.
no.
Let's see. Sorry. The number one thing I do when I'm looking to see how things can be done is I first just see how other people do it, and then maybe I don't have to think. And if that's faster than thinking,
Missing an N.
Oh,
Dow case.
Okay. Well, I'm the only one. How about strip bang?
Well, did you see that bang returns nil if it's already downcased? So that's why you wouldn't want to do that, because you don't want to return nil.
I think it modifies the object.
It still modifies the object. Okay.
Yeah, which is the only thing I care about. So strip is done. This is one where I usually see it happen, right? Is strip attributes. Oh, look, it's a module someone's put in here to just use it all the time.
Cool.
Okay, that's cool. I guess this. Oh, look, someone's already done it here. But how are they using it? Let's just see. I hope this is a before validation or something like that. Look, there you go. See, they don't have to think. Confirmed, kind of. And let's just see the difference between strip and down case, though, because as you said, it returns nothing. And that's fine. Okay, same behavior, doesn't return anything like down case. Okay. So down case email invite. Now, if I were to do this, it should be invalid, right?
This is a duplicate.
Yeah.
Maybe we look at the error messages too or something, just to make sure it's invalid for the right reason.
Yeah, you're right. Let's do a TDD type of a cycle here, where reverse kind of actually. I find, side note, I find doing pure TDD in GitLab is a no-go for me, except if I'm in jest test, because the cycle of, even when I'm running Spring with my RSpec, is so slow. So I usually put the fix in and then try to make my test still be wrong like this, instead of the other way around.
I don't use Spring. I know. It broke like a year and a half ago, and then I think what broke it fixed it, and I just never.
Yeah, I think you were on that thread that we talked about it with, right? We were testing it, and like after that worked, I'm like, okay, I'm going to still use it.
I should probably go back to yours.
It's just so painful to use RSpec without it. I mean, it's like the setup is like a minute.
Yeah.
To restart the app.
I need to like change my shortcuts, put it back.
I know we need to find a way to strip down what is needed for RSpec runs.
Yeah.
Loading the app is a given, but like it's loading Giddily and everything, that's only needed in some cases. It's not like every case like this. I don't need the user model really in like regular rates. Anyway, so
I like the idea, by the way, like I know we have engineering productivity. What if we had like engineering personal trainers where you could like meet with someone who's really good at GitLab productivity and they could like help you like optimize your setup locally? That'd be so cool.
Yeah, like dev tips in person, right?
I found it. Devise is doing it. There's a config file that says case sensitivity key email. That is why you can't find it.
So okay, it's buried.
It was really bothering me, so I'm gonna put a link to, or I'll put the file in the.
Yes, please do.
It bothers me. Okay.
Aha. So it's adding something there that
there's a config for devise that says this is, and I think devise is used in that user. I can't Keys.
The down case, there it is, case insensitive keys. There it is. It's probably hooking something where it hooks something then into the model layer to do it before save or something that we'd have to dig into. You know,
Yep.
it'd be interesting to see.
Okay.
I
All right, to go
call back.
down that. So I don't even think we could change that if we wanted to change anything about how that's done. But yeah, that was really great.
There's always monkey patching, Terry. There's always monkey patching of
Don't
device.
get me
We do
started.
it a lot.
We do love that here. We do love that.
I don't want to talk about that.
This is really concerning.
When I was learning, they were like, don't ever do this. And you get in the real world and everyone's like, let's do it. So yeah.
I'm going to really dig in to see like how it's actually hooking in and actually downcasing it afterwards, just to, you know.
Let's go back to our specs. I want to at least get some spec passing and then,
There you go.
Oh, it's passing. Okay, so that's good.
We saw the error. I put it back to invalid as we expect it should operate. Okay, so now let's do it to the create. So I think, Jesse, I'm seeing what you're saying. If I do it here, I can't do it as a model layer test because like we're not going through the creator, which is okay. I guess that's okay. I mean, that's the thing that we're allowing is we're saying like between the model and the service spec, there's a gap, or service layer, there's a gap now. And is that gap okay? Like, I know for certain, except for using FactoryBot in the app, in our spec and other places, that all members are created through this class, service class, where we might put this. So it's okay. The problem is that a problem? Like in the future, will that always be? I mean, like that's what gets me is like, I don't know if like, yeah, it's a standard. You should use that every single time. Will there be like a case in the future where someone decides that's not true for one small edge case, and then this blows up our entire concept?
Yeah.
Like there's just no assurance, you know what I mean? There's like, I mean, of course, there's no assurance no someone's not going to do validate false, right? Too, but
or update all, yeah.
Update all,
database
right?
migrations.
Yeah. Like maybe there's a more clever way to do this at the database level.
I feel like that might make it harder to find what's happening if it was downcasing it and we do something that's like add something. I mean, yeah, that is the most, I mean, like that is the most,
the core layer. Like
you cannot get around it if it's done at the database layer. But I think it is hard to like connect that back to the code base to say, why is my email downcased?
Yeah. The discoverability really suffers at that point, right?
Yeah. But like, yeah, I'm with you because there is potential. And it is something that I think about at GitLab. It's like discovering, when I did my onboarding, it wasn't super easy to discover like the service classes. My team doesn't work with like creating records per se. We're like working with callbacks that are doing like index data. And so like discovering all of these services, I think is very easy for like a newer person to the code base, or even someone who's like a once-off or like a less frequent community contributor to like not use the service class.
Yeah.
I don't know how to make it like, who put a spec in that's like, don't call, not like, you cannot use create on this method, like, or like you cannot use the normal thing, like you have to go through the service class. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, for user and member stuff, we always use the service classes. There's so much logic in there. If you weren't to use that, it would just be, there's nothing
like a reviewer at some point would be like, this isn't gonna fly. Like, this isn't using the right method to create this model.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So let me throw this out here and try to straw man this or steel man it. I feel like verging away from callbacks as a whole is a great concept. However, when we are already in it for a model, it feels like it'd be less favorable to put half of it at the service layer and half of it at the model layer. Because it'd be harder to think of it as a whole and see it, what's actually happening.
Half of what are you describing?
So like, for instance, this is already here. If these weren't here, let's put it this way. If these weren't here, then I feel more comfortable with putting this as the service layer because I don't have these to think about as well in concert with it or any other data mutation that could be
Let's
happening.
just move them all. Just move them all.
Exactly.
I don't know,
that's-
because then I just feel
I
like the
see-
problem is never going to be, it's never going to be fixable. I mean, I'm not saying like like if you end up going, if I got this as a maintainer and it wasn't as before validation, I probably would like, I would not block anything on this. But I think just like it's hard because we have this like, it's this, I would say if there's only 3, could we move them all and like make the stand for this? But if you're not ready to, then I think it's okay as a before validation. But you know, I don't know. It's like,
Well, so my argument though, in terms of you saying let's move them all, is like that moving away from a validation feels very risky, right? Like if you already have a validation, we're like, shoot, we might be depending on this in like 100 places. But if you start with it in the service class, you know that you're only depending on it in there. Like it's really hard to get rid of validations because you end up depending on them in lots of different places. Whereas if it starts in the service class, like that's obvious, like does that make any sense? Like it's like you know that it's only
There's
applied in that one place.
There's no legacy or tech debt to think about in the past when you're starting there. But however, what you're going to find underneath the rocks of moving them is another story.
okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. I still think then, I don't know. I mean, the ever-ending
I think-
saga, do we create more?
This is why this is
I
hard to
think
think about because there's equal sides and it's like there's a lot of trade-offs and it's like, but what if someone puts something between the service layer and the model? I want to be as close to the database as I can, especially for mutating data, you know, and then like where all the other callbacks are, like before save, what happens for before save? Well, I would look at, you know, the callback tree here somehow.
Yeah. I mean, I will say that this type of data mutation is probably the least offensive to me to be in a callback. I think, like, for example, that generate invite token, I wish that was in the
Yeah,
service class.
Yeah,
right?
that's
Like,
going
why are we
too much
generating a
work.
token every time a user gets created in a test or a member
wild.
gets created in a
Yeah.
test? That's not ideal.
That was a lot. Now, let me throw this other concept out there, and this one's a little more out there. Make it a before validation, but apply it in the creator class.
Why'd you do that? What do
You
mean?
could add it to the callback chain of the member being created. I mean, that's a little out there. This is like bias. Yeah, I think it's this one. No, let me 1 second. I've seen this pattern before, not to say it's great, but this is kind of the concept what I'm talking about.
Whoa.
Yeah, and I've come upon this code and I'm like, you know what? It makes a lot of sense here. I get it. Because you can just rely on Rails for the validations here to just handle, you know, putting everything in the right place if it fails it, right? And on the, you know, messages and everything like that. This way you don't have to, you know, do it yourself. But I mean, like, I don't think I do it. It's just something I throw out there is like, we could have both.
Both. Yeah. Yeah.
For no good reason.
mean-
I mean, on before validation, you could just, you know, do the work, you know, but
That's interesting. I hadn't seen that.
Yeah, so I think I'm leaning towards the service layer. Just because Jesse, I think you made a lot of good points and your thoughts about it in the past.
I'm a bully. I'm a validation bully.
Don't look at it that
Callback
way.
bully.
I have, you know, I don't know if you've ever looked at like Elixir and Phoenix or played around with it, but it promotes concepts like this a lot better, where everything that is saved to the database is a separate chain, or I forget what it's called. So it's like it's not going back to the model layer. You get to define your own chain of what qualifies to be saved, and that's by default. And so like whereas Rails is like, everybody, here you are, unless you put like in this one global area on create or other like little conditions like this, you know. In Phoenix, it's more like the callback chain has to be defined per event, per save, you know, area. And so that's what putting it at the service layer here kind of feels like for us, is it's like very narrow, it's very explicit and very declarative of like, I know this is exactly what I'm doing. It removes ambiguity a little bit that I feel around the Rails model layer when it's like a catch-all, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and to clarify, like I actually think this is probably the very best use of a callback. I think the problem is that with the number of contributors we have and external contributors, like people just love to use callbacks for everything. And so I think I tend to just be really dramatic and be like, never use a callback, because it's just so much simpler to think of it that way. But I do think if you were ever going to want to use a callback, this in particular would be a good use case. So
right here is a good example of why you probably should be sparing about your callbacks. You know, this try to untangle this, or you try to say like, well, I don't know what happened after I saved it. Good luck.
I mean, the example given in the docs about what to be careful about is the post commit receive hook thing, where some of the code that my team works in, that's how pushes get indexed to Elasticsearch. Trying to trace that through in Kibana logs is near impossible to find it. There's so many things that are happening in that. It like hurts to kind of think about it. That's a lot. Like all of those after creates for me, if I was doing that new, I will be like, create an event and then go create listeners. Something that kind of, you know, I don't know, it's hard.
Yeah.
But this has been a good discussion. I know we're over time, so thank you for sharing
thank you, Doug.
Your thoughts on all the items, and good luck figuring out how Devise is working, because I am not doing that.
It's interesting, but I always forget. So when an issue comes up again in a couple of weeks or something, I'll be like, I don't know what's going on, and I have to dive back.
Oh my gosh. All right. Thank you. I'll post this recording in a little bit. Bye.
Bye.